Yeah.
I sat for a whole hour watching Omar break down a 20-minute video from Coach Nick, by the way. I don't know how you stretch a 19-minute video into 56 minutes, Omar. I watched him stretch a 19-minute video to 56 minutes, and not once in this video did I hear him say anything about, yeah, man, you got to look at the front office and the organization for why these things is going on. All I heard was, nah, you can't blame – how you going to blame Doc for James Harden tripping? Nah, how you gonna blame Doc for Ricky Davis missing a layup?
80% of it was, is this Doc's fault? Is this Doc? And then when Coach Nick entered the building, I ain't gonna lie, the bubble, yeah, this is a lot of Doc. This is a lot of Doc.
I will maintain, because if I remember correctly, hey Ben, if I remember correctly, Montrez was getting washed, and I was a Montrez guy. Montrez was just he did not belong in the NBA at that point. So it
Doc can always do that. The guy who played well one game against him, and he makes sure to trade for him.
Didn't he do someone like Paul Reed too, or something like that?
I had a whole interview with a beat writer for like it was like 10 minutes long, and I just cut it because the whole damn video was so long. But that was also where we got into a lot of that stuff too. There is a lot of the technical coaching stuff that really was the problem. Like, Montrezl Harrell for sure. By why was he ever in game 7? By game 2, you would have known he can't get on the floor. Paul Reed is a guy this year who was doing well. They were kind of grooming him to be in that role, and then they completely go away from him, and they have nothing to offer when Embiid goes to the bench. So, you're right. Like I could have gotten in the weeds on that too, and made probably a better argument, it sounds like, than I did on the rest of it.
But okay, so when Montrez, and see, this is front office. I think, if I'm not mistaken, this may have been the year when Montrez was on the team. That's when Doc was also doing double duty.
Yeah.
And so that's a front office issue. We've got to lay off Doc.
There's no way you sat there and watched Doc coach the Magic and you sit there, oh man, Trace McGrady's a bad playmaker. I wonder why he's in a situation to make a playmaking play when we need it. There's no way you watch Doc coach the Magic and you see one guy helping off when he doesn't need the help off, and you see the same Doc coach the Celtics and a player does the same thing, and the same Doc coaches the Clippers and you see a player do the same thing on defense, and the same Doc is coaching 2 iterations of the Sixers, and then on the defensive end, they're making the same mistakes they've been making for over a decade, and you're going to sit here and tell me, nah, it's the front office and the players in every situation. Like, no, Doc is clearly making mistakes. Doc is clearly having his faults, and it's been evident for as long as we've been alive at this point. It's looking like I don't understand. As long as Eli's been alive, I'm sorry. I don't understand how we're even having. I don't even understand how you're having this stance on. Oh man, Ricky Davis is on the court, man. How are we blaming Doc? Like,
okay. So this is my assumption, and maybe both coaches can clear this up. I am under the assumption, because we talked about that finals thing where KG messed up. I'm under the assumption that when we have veteran players definitely need less coaching. And so some of these mistakes, some of these mishaps, some of these things are just veteran players folding under pressure, making, mistakes, whatever the case may be. Because I didn't think that Doc needed to tell KG, hey, don't stand in no man's land. At least pick somebody up. Or Rondo, you don't need to be in a situation where you're trying to force your way to guard Pau Gasol. Get over to Derek Fisher, buddy. You're gonna be out of the way. But and I think Doc gets teams with a lot of veterans. He has smart point guards on his team. I think that's like a staple of his more recent team. But so I thought that was, not a coaching issue. It's just, hey, veteran players either are going to step up when they need to, or they're going to fall. And it's because they don't need as much coaching. That could be a bad judgment call by me, though.
But if you look at James Harden's shots in Game 7, they were all makeable shots. Those are all good shots for Harden. He didn't make them. So how much of that is on Harden? How much of that is on Doc?
100% on Harden.
Okay. No, well, here's the thing. In the modern game, we understand how we rely on the three-point shot, right? Mm-hmm. And we also understand now how important the mental aspect is to shooting the basketball, right? And that's why I hope we're gonna go away from the Izzos and all those kind of coaches, the Bobby Knight style, because when you treat your play, and Ben can really attest to this, when you treat your players that way in a game, we know chemically how the brain reacts to anger and disgust. And some coaches, some players, and I could do this, was like, oh, I need that kind of coaching, or I can thrive in that kind of coaching. But when we're talking about shooting and the need to be rhythmic and relaxed to be able to make a three, you can't shoot harder. You could see it in the Sixers. They weren't going to make. They went 3 for 21 or whatever in that second half. Once it started to fall apart, and that would have been where you could take a timeout or do something to be able to help your team mentally recover and get back to equilibrium, because it was still a close game. That was the thing. So I could feel it through the TV. If you want to call it, kumbaya and new age stuff or whatever. All I can tell you is that when you get into a positive frame of mind, and we're talking about shooting specifically, it is so powerful how much better you can be, especially when you're talking about distance from 25 feet away, especially when the game starts to slip out of your hands and you need to start making threes. Look at this. I can't believe this reaction. That is a huge thing, and that's why the balls. Part of the thing we see now in the modern game is we don't see these kind of blowouts. It used to be back in the day when I was younger. A home team would go on a run in like the end of the second quarter, and that was it. The blowout was on, and the team would just fold. Right now, with the 3-point shot, we don't see that as much. We have wild runs to keep teams stay in the games, but Doc's teams don't, and they still do the old.
That's true. That's true. I'm sorry.
Let me say this.
Let me watch the blowouts, and you know what I mean. They never compete. They can't stay with it hard enough. Look at the freaking Lakers. If you don't, they have to be like buried 6 feet under before they're going to lose. They will stay in it and they will stick to it until the very bitter end, because they are tough like that. And that's what Darvin Ham can do for you.
I was just about to ask you that. So you think that is a plus for Darvin Ham, or is that like, hey, we have LeBron James on our team, so we're gonna gear him?
No, it's a plus for Darvin Ham.
Yeah, that's Ham. That's Ham. But I would
Ham will make an adjustment, whether it's late, whether it's missed, whether it's 2 games too late. A series, regardless, you'll make an adjustment. You'll make an adjustment. Now, I will say, I've been pro Darvin Ham's a terrorist because he lacks the ability to constantly make adjustments, or he'll lack the knowledge to have certain lineups in when we're supposed to have them in. But compared to Doc Rivers, yeah, Darvin Ham is a savant of basketball when it comes to making adjustments.
Well, we're going to find out in about 20 minutes because...
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, we are. I can't handle that.
Right? He kept the starting line that looked so good against the Warriors and didn't really say, well, how would that match? I don't know if he did or not. I think he wanted continuity, but there's no way he could. You should have been able to see that. You're going to putting Austin Reeves on MPJ was going to be what we saw. And then he kept it there. The third quarter they started. So Darvin Ham has some accountability here. He better come tonight with a better game plan, because that could have cost him the game. Why they started the same 5 in the third quarter, I have no idea. And by the way, Doc does the same thing too. I'm looking at what video am I doing right now? Whatever video I'm doing right now, the same idea. They didn't. It was Nzula. Didn't make an adjustment of this personnel either in that third quarter when they got destroyed. And, why is Missoula funny? Did I say it wrong?
I'm a Celtics fan. I'm a Celtics fan.
He's a Celtics fan.
Yeah.
He's hurting right now.
I'm hurting a little bit.
Can I ask, and this is for everybody, wouldn't it make sense to think after, and I want to bring it back to the plays that you brought up, Omar, that you referenced against the Hawks. Wouldn't it make sense to think that if Tobias Harris is a competent shooter, we know he's a competent shooter, you have one play where you have a guy like Clint Capella, who's seen as the rim protector for the Hawks, if he's on you, realistically, it will make sense to pull him out, step away, ready for a 3, correct? But if you have a guy like that who decides on 2 individual plays, and that's just those 2 plays, who knows how many times it's happened all the game, I'm going to dive directly to the basket without my hands up expecting a pass to get in the same position to get a rebound. Wouldn't that scream to you maybe that is coming from the sideline, and that's a game plan, that's a scheme, that is a coaching suggestion that we want to gang rebound, we want to attack the boards or whatever it is? Wouldn't that make sense?
Does anybody and again, maybe I just have way too much faith in these players and their ability to know basketball. Right. Tobias
Clearly
Harris,
not.
Tobias Harris throws it in, to Joel Embiid, and Danilo Gallinari's got him locked up real good.
Mm-hmm.
If Tobias Harris can't understand not to dive right underneath the basket, Tobias Harris doesn't need to be in the NBA. And I felt the same way when that same stretch that Coach Nick was talking about, where they just start jacking up threes in Game 7 the other night. I'm saying to myself, because I watched that and I was like, yo, these are all early shot clock. These are all extremely early shot clock when they're jacking threes. James Harden, if you can't stop passing the ball to these people so they take threes, you don't deserve to be in the NBA, or you're trying to get Mike D'Antoni hired.
I don't think he played a Game 7 trying to get D'Antoni hired. I'm gonna just throw that out there. I don't.
There's no proof that he didn't say.
Well, there is proof that a lot of people had a narrative about Harden, and Harden gambling said narrative for a past his prime run with D'Antoni is crazy. So I don't think he did that.
He likes to be comfortable, Sage. He likes to be really comfortable.
Yeah.
Okay, maybe I'm into.
It's going to be a past his prime James Harden till his prime James Harden again next year. So
okay.
There's one thing about coaching I wanted to mention, which is there are so many different domains in which an excellent coach needs to be excellent. You can't be the best at all of them, right? So there's in-game adjustments, there's X's and O's, there's team, the emotion of the team, there's interpersonal relationships. Things like in-game adjustments and X's and O's, those are the easiest things to delegate to someone else. So I made this point to Nick the other day. You have Phil Jackson and you have Tex Winter running the triangle. I mean, Phil Jackson obviously knows the triangle, but Tex Winter's the inventor of it, the creator of it, and he's running it. So for me, somebody who gets the interpersonal relationship stuff, that's what you need the most in a head coach. Being able to help players in all kinds of different emotional situations, interact with themselves and with each other. As long as you understand, hey, I'm not so good at in-game adjustments, or I'm not so good at X's and O's. But a lot of times, I think coaches don't recognize what they're not good at, or they're hesitant to delegate things they're not good at because they're insecure. So you want someone who's aware enough and secure enough to delegate what they're not good at. And just for the comments, I didn't know until 30 seconds ago I was going to sit down in front of a camera. So I've been wearing this.
Hey, rock this shirt.
It's cool.
Let me ask both of y'all this then, because I understand that's what having like an established coaching staff looks like. It's no longer back in the 80s where there was a coach and an assistant. It doesn't work anymore. What coaches in the league need to be fired then that currently have jobs? Just based off of YouTube.
Hey, whoa. Darvin Ham, at least they like him, but they didn't like Vogel. That's a concept that I know that hasn't been talked about here, I assume. But simply winning over the locker room, I think, is the reason why a lot of these guys get their jobs and or get fired. Darvin Ham is like the most recent case to mind, and maybe Nick Nurse is the reason why he got packed up, because Nick Nurse is a coach. I truly don't understand why he got fired. I don't know.
Yeah. That's a weird one. I gravitate to the coaches like that who have coached in like weird leagues and have had no talent and really had to learn, how to win with nothing. I like those kind of coaches. And a lot of times coaches will come in who were ex-players and they never had to learn any of that stuff, right? They were always from the get-go, just, in a situation where they had pros. We're in a situation now. There's 5 or 6 coaches have already been fired, so I don't know who's left. Monty probably got squeezed because of a new owner. I would think. If you're a head coach and there's a new GM who gets hired, you better start looking for a new job. Just like when you have an assistant coach who's already been a head coach. So that was part of it. Although Monty kind of, I don't know if Monty is as great of a coach as maybe his reputation is. Honestly, Thibodeau is probably the next guy, right?
Okay, I could agree.
Ooh, that's actually
really
only if they try
it.
Getting rid of Julius Randle first.
Yeah, well, I had said they needed to get rid of him. Remember, the first year he broke out with the Knicks was when they should have traded him when he had the most value. You knew that he's a mid-range guy who's going to take terrible shots, and that doesn't come through in the playoffs. And it seems like he's got a cloud over his head wherever he goes, right? Like that Nets character. So you don't want that, especially when you have a coach who won't even smile. I mean, the guy, is such a. We're talking about positive frame of mind, how you can flow state and how you play well. I'm concerned because all you see from Tibbs is just anger and frustration, and I can't believe that's going to be good. Mike Brown, by the way, was surprising to me. I don't think I was very high on him, but the thing he did here, what's hilarious? I was at the practice in 2010 with the Lakers when they got Nash and they had Kobe and Dwight. He was trying to put in the offense, the Princeton offense. He had Eddie Jordan on the staff, and they were doing it, and it totally collapsed. He couldn't get any of it done. He couldn't get the players to buy in, yada, yada, yada. Well, cut to 13 years later, he finally had a team they actually listened to him, and look what he did. That was fantastic.
Greatest offense statistically.
Now it's I don't even know what to think of him as a coach because he did so well until he ran into his mentor, or not his mentor, excuse me, ran into his former boss, who I guess pulled a couple strings better than him in that series. Anyway, who else would be on there on this list?
Jason Kidd. I'm waiting for you to say Jason Kidd.
You don't think he needs one more season before he said that?
I think he needs one more roster. I'm not gonna lie.
He's in the same. I feel like J. Kidd's in the same situation that damn. Monty Williams was in before he got fired, where you trade. Well, not even the same situation in terms of front office, but in terms of with the roster, you traded away your depth and you traded away some of your best defensive players to get this star guy, and now you're left with what? Nothing. You're left with two ball dominant players that can score tremendously. But that's it. Now you're left with half a team, essentially. I don't think it was fair for J. Kidd. Give him an offseason to kind of build some pieces around Luka and Kyrie. Is Kyrie still on the books, or is he free?
I have no idea. I'm not going to lie. But they have yet to give Luka an elite rim protector. They haven't even tried that. Or at least a good rim protector. No offense to his former bigs, but they haven't even tried that. I think, at least try that before you say Kidd can't work.
Dwight Powell, take offense.
I think
Dwight Powell?
Take offense to Dwight Powell.
I think Jason Kidd makes people feel extremely awkward about their role on a team, and their security on a team. Maybe that's what front office told him. That whole thing with Christian Wood at the beginning of the season was kind of crazy. Now I think Christian Woods he feels.
Remind me, what was the thing with him?
Presumed starter, but I think it felt like only 2 days after they picked him up, it was, hey, this guy's coming off the bench. Don't you worry about none of that. And this was supposed to be, Maxi Kleber, Dwight Powell in front of him. It seemed like a clear fit, but it just unprovoked. I even think, hey, just don't you guys worry. This guy's coming off the bench, and then he's made some remarks about that throughout the season as well. I also don't necessarily think he's the greatest coach.
No, I agree. But I feel like this year I was watching games, and I had to rack my brains to remember exactly why, where I was like, oh, this is better. Either he had better assistance with him or more support. Something was different this year because I thought, I have been critical of him everywhere else he went. Something was different. Do you have any feeling for that, Ben, or no?
For Jason Kidd?
Yeah.
Well, the thing with Christian Wood is when they signed JaVale McGee, part of that signing was McGee was guaranteed to start. And so that put Christian Wood on the bench. That's obviously having a five who can shoot threes is a great pairing with Luka. I think in terms of who should get fired, I think the flip side of that, who should get hired, the biggest high leverage play out there right now is hiring the best female coach there is, because the best female coach is going to be equal to the best male coach. So why not, be the first team to do that and get yourself a great coach in the process.
So you think Becky should get something? I don't know too much about Becky.
You mean Becky Hammond?
I've heard nothing but good things about Becky.
I haven't heard anything bad.
Is there another one?
Hold on.
He wasn't talking about Becky. Wait a minute.
He's not talking about Becky, but you're talking about Tara Vanderveer, who was the Phil Jackson of women's college.
See, any of these names people are putting, Dawn Staley, Becky, so you could be a teacher, right, and a high school coach. And they said in the 70s that because of sexism and women weren't hired in a number of jobs, you had a number of great teachers because that was one of the few professions that was open to women. And there's still that same cap on women coaching in the NBA. And so there are a bunch of potentially great NBA coaches out there in this pool that not one person has ever been hired from.
Mm-hmm.
You don't need new blood. I do agree with that.
I agree with that because like Sage was saying, I said it earlier, going from firing Bud to saying at the top of your list Doc Rivers,
Mike D'Antoni. Yeah, it feels like they're just recycling the same names at this point.
Because with these coaches,
JJ
you get
Redick.
a little bit of JJ Redick would be funny.
About him being like actually considered like he's one of the top candidates for the Sixers.
He interviewed.
It'd be funny. It'd be funny.
Oh, wait, who are we talking about?
JJ Redick for the Sixers. Is that a real report that he's a actual candidate for the Sixers?
With Toronto?
He interviewed with Toronto, but they said he was a favorite for the Sixers. But I thought that was fluff. I was like, there's no way.
I think I can explain that one. I think that a lot of times they'll just, as a courtesy, they'll announce it. They'll bring him in to get him into the conversation for something years down the line, whatever, you know. And then Wojnarowski will tweet it out. You know what I mean? It's a nice way of kind of putting him on the radar, right? I don't know if JJ Redick was really, you know, we'll see. But to me, it felt like that's what that happens, right? You'll see these sometimes for the assistants too, someone you never heard of, but Woj will tweet it out, whatever. And it's all part of that process of like eventually, almost like when you run for president, right, the first time and you lose, you're really doing it for the next time or whatever. But yeah, because I think we're through with hiring former players that don't have any coaching experience as head coaches, right?
Well, I was just going to ask you that. So why bring in why
Steve Nash?
That's what I was just going to ask. So why did the Steve Nash thing happen then? If that's why did the Steve Nash
players? And that's why I would think the JJ Redick thing will work, because if Joel Embiid really has this much power, this much influence in that Philly organization, and if they end up moving off of James Harden because he didn't take his he's not supposed to accept his player option. He wants a longer deal. So if it doesn't work out for them, and they're stuck with whatever Joel wants, if Joe say, "Yo, I really want JJ," JJ is gonna get the job. If they really are listening to him, Harden's not there, JJ is gonna get the job, and that'll be the only way a player or a former player is gonna be coached, in my opinion, just like Steve Nash with the Nets.
Yeah, because KD wanted Steve Nash, right? That was like the main thing. So
at least that's what was reported. I don't know.
Yeah, I just feel like with these whole dynamics, we can look back and say that Steve Nash was a bad coach, therefore he deserved to be fired. But it's kind of like it's kind of like if I work at a tech company and I hire a bad software engineer, it's on me for hiring a bad software engineer. But at the end of the day, that bad software engineer is a bad software engineer who's not doing his job properly. So I like this conversation. I don't think it's like a black and white thing. It's either the management or the coach, and that's why I brought up the pie chart, because I feel like everything goes hand in hand. Same thing with the coach and the players. Like a coach can draw up a play or set a game plan, but it's also going to be up to the players to execute on that. So I don't know, man.